What's up, Star Wars nerds, and welcome to another episode of Brett on Fett. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at what could be the next special wave for the vintage collection. Plus, we'll take a quick look at some recent interesting pickups of mine, including the Dr. Aphra comic set and the Stansolo custom Iconicon Boba Fett. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 31 of Brett on Fett. And before we move on with our main topic of the episode, which is taking a look at what the possible next special wave for the vintage collection will be, I did want to share with you guys a couple of recent interesting pickups of mine. The first of which being the 2018 San Diego Comic-Con special action figure set, the Dr. Aphra comic set. And as I mentioned, it's from 2018. However, online retailer Big Bad Toy Store somehow got this figure in stock recently for a very limited time, and I was able to get a hold of one. And so let's take a quick look at it. Alright, so here is my 2018 San Diego Comic-Con Dr. Aphra comic set. As I mentioned, I did get this recently on Big Bad Toy Store's website, and it came in great condition. It has no scratches or creases or dings or anything. I was really impressed with the quality of the condition of this figure that came in, through an online retailer that usually sells, new items. And it's got Dr. Aphra, it's got BT1, my favorite part of this thing, and then it's got 000. These are awesome droids. I really wanted this thing just to get the BT1. I've already have Aphra on a single card for TVC. And these droids are so cool, so I really wanted this. The back of the packaging is really awesome. I like the write up there, but then the artwork. And it's got that iridescent sheen that has come to be pretty common with a lot of these convention exclusives. But man, just an awesome looking set. If you can get your hand on it, I would highly recommend it, because rumor has it that Dr. Aphra is going to appear in a live action show or have her own show possibly at some point. Okay, so there's this toy convention that's held annually online. It's a 5-day online convention. It's hosted by a variety of toy YouTubers, and it's called Iconicon. And recently, custom action figure creator Stansolocreations made a very special back metalized Boba Fett in honor of Iconicon. And I was able to get my hands on one of these guys, so let's take a quick look. And here he is in all his glory. The Iconicon Boba Fett by Stansolocreations. What an amazing looking figure and card back. It's got that iridescent styling I love so much on it. There you can see the Iconicon emblem on there as well. Very cool looking, so cool. I had to put this thing in an acrylic case for display. And looking at the figure itself, it's so beautiful looking. I called it vac metalizing earlier, but the description on their website says it's actually electroplated. And I'd be lying if I said I knew the difference between vac metalizing and electroplating. I think they're very similar processes, but man, what an awesome choice for that figure. Just taking a look at the back, just a little advertisement for the various custom figures that Stansolo has. Another Iconicon logo on the back there. But man, gorgeous figure. I love the little color choices. The figure's mold is in that vintage style, yet it's got a few modern touches. For example, his rangefinder on his helmet is a separate piece. It's not molded on to the top of the head like the old vintage Boba Fett had. But man, I just couldn't be happier with this thing. Congrats to Chris Smith at stansolocreations for creating such an awesome looking product. Okay, so unless you're a fairly new collector to the vintage collection, you're probably aware that Hasbro has put out a number of special waves under the vintage collection that are separate from the mainline figures. These are, in most cases, figures whose card backs look completely different than the traditional vintage collection. And they include sets such as the special action figure sets that contain 3 figures, very similar to the doctoraphra set I showed you earlier in this video. And then in 2012, they included the Lost Line figures, which we'll take a closer look at. And they also included the carbonized figures from The Mandalorian. I guess we'll count those. Those aren't totally different looking. They use the same card backs, just with some iridescent look to them. And then the figures themselves are just repaint with metallic style paint. And then finally, most recently, Hasbro put out a special wave based on the animated Droid series. So I thought it might be a fun topic to explore what Hasbro might do for their next special wave from the vintage collection. But before we talk about what special wave I think Hasbro will do next, let's quickly take a closer look at the special waves we've already gotten, starting with those special action figure sets. Let's take a look. Alright, so this is a look at an original vintage Kenner special action figure set. As an example, they put out a bunch of these with 3 figure packs, and so Hasbro decided to emulate this as a special wave. And from 2010 to 2013, they put out a number of these special action figure sets as Target exclusives and a few Kmart exclusives. And then later on, put out a few more as exclusives to conventions as well as a Target exclusive. So let's take a quick run through of all these special action figure sets they put out. So the next special wave that we got from Hasbro for the vintage collection is referred to as the Lost Line wave, and this came out in 2012, and it featured card backs that were based on the original concept card backs for vintage Kenner before they went with what we got with the racetrack design. And as you can see, Hasbro put out 6 total figures for this Lost Line wave, 1 for each episode of the prequel trilogy and original trilogy. So we got Jar Jar from episode 1, a Clone Trooper Lieutenant from episode 2, a Shock Trooper from episode 3, a Sand Trooper from episode 4, Leia in her Bespin gown from episode 5, and Darth Vader at Emperor's Wrath from episode 6. And these are all straight repacks from previous released vintage collection figures. And the original release of these figures came in a 2012 San Diego Comic-Con exclusive carbon freezing chamber set that was really awesome and came with a very special Jar Jar and Carbonite TVC figure. And here's just a closer look at a few of the Lost Line figures I have in my collection. This is the episode 2 one. You can see it's got an image of the Republic gunship on there and the Clone Trooper Lieutenant picture, and there's the repacked Clone Trooper Lieutenant figure, pretty cool. Looking on the back, you can see they number these things, EP202 for this one, and there's a look at the wave. Next is the Sand Trooper. It's got an image of a Star Destroyer for some reason, and then a picture of the Sand Trooper, and there's the Sand Trooper himself. This is a straight repack again of the second Sand Trooper from the line. It's EP404. Pretty awesome looking figure. And then you got the Darth Vader one. You got an Imperial shuttle there. Darth Vader himself being electrocuted by the Emperor, and there he is, a repack of the Emperor's Wrath Vader from TVC, and it's EP606. So very cool figures. I love displaying these guys. That's why I put them in acrylic cases. Next up, I debated whether or not to count this as a special wave because the card backs are not really completely different. However, ultimately I decided it does count because this definitely is not part of the main line and they're not assigned VC numbers, so I decided to go with it. And this is the 2020 and 2021 carbonized wave from The Mandalorian. In 2020, they came out wave 1 with 4 figures, the Remnant Trooper, Cara Dune, the Death Trooper, and the Mandalorian himself. And then in 2021, they followed up with a second wave of 4 figures, the Incinerator Trooper, Moff Gideon, the Shore Trooper, and the Armorer. So let's just take a quick closer look at a few of these from my collection. So I just brought out 3 of my favorites from the carbonized wave, starting with Cara Dune. This one, I actually think she looks better than her original TVC version. I think the carbonized works for her outfit, so it looks pretty cool to me. On the back, you can see that's first wave there. Alright, and next is probably my favorite carbonized figure is the Shore Trooper from The Mandalorian, and the reason this one is so unique, it's the only one that does not have a duplicate version in the regular TVC. There is no regular TVC Shore Trooper on a Mandalorian card, so if you guys don't have these and you're going to get one, definitely get the Shore Trooper because it's the only one that is unique. And finally I have the Incinerator Trooper, very cool looking card back with that iridescent design, and then the paint job on the Trooper itself looks amazing. I just love that pearly look it has to it. So it's another one of my favorites from that wave. And the last special wave that Hasbro did for TVC was the animated Droids series wave for the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm, which of course had Boba Fett, C-3PO, and R2-D2. So let's take a closer look at these from my collection real quick. And here are the Droids wave from my collection. I think these card backs display wonderfully. That's why I put them in acrylics. And starting with 3PO, you've got the coin there, and there you see they've painted him in that animated style colors. Great looking artwork. On the back, all the backs of these look the same. They have the 50th Lucasfilm timeline there. Very cool. Looking at R2-D2, another repaint, but done in that animated style. And a really cool looking card back image there on the front. You can see the back looks exactly the same. And last but not least, one of my favorites of all of TVC is this animated style Boba Fett. There's a coin. Mine unfortunately is upside down. But I love the colors of this version of Boba Fett, and he is a repaint of that really awesome Return of the Jedi TVC Boba Fett we got not too long ago. But overall, I think this was a fantastic special wave, especially for display purposes. Alright, so after giving it some thought, I came up with 2 different types of special waves I think Hasbro might do next. And for the first one, in light of the last special wave, the animated Droid series, I think a possibility is Hasbro may come up with a special similar wave based on the animated EWOKS series. And if you're not familiar with the EWOKS series, it was a cartoon show that ran in the fall of 1985. And it ran at the same time as the animated Droid series. Together, the 2 shows, which aired back to back, were known as the Droids and Ewok Adventure Hour. And they aired on ABC for just 1 season. And Hasbro put out a first wave of 6 figures from the EWOKS series, and had actually made a second wave of figures in anticipation of the second season for EWOKS. Unfortunately, Season 2 of EWOKS, just like the Droids show, was canceled, and so that second wave of figures was never produced and distributed. But given that 2023 will mark the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, and EWOKS are some beloved characters from that film, I think it only makes sense for Hasbro to revisit the animated EWOKS series figures, just like they did with droids. And I think it would be a small wave of just 3 figures, just like the droids, and 3 figures that we've already had in the vintage collection, where they'll just do a repaint and the more animated style colors of those characters. So let's take a look at the 3 characters I think they would make for this special wave. Alright, so the first one I came up with is a no-brainer, and it is Wicket. Wicket is arguably the most popular Ewok from Return of the Jedi, and it's also a no-brainer because the TVC version of Wicket already came with an alternate hood that you could put over him that's more like the animated style version of him. So they could just repack this guy with that hood on there and call it a day. Next up was another easy one to come up with, and that is Logray, the Medicine Man Ewok. And this is an easy one because he's another figure that is popular, and he was already in the Ewoks animated line. And there's a look at his TVC version, so they'd have to take that figure and repaint him quite a bit for this animated style. And the last one I came up with was Poplu. Now, Poplu was never sold in stores, but they did make a salesman sample product you see here. So they've already got the card back design. We already have a Poplu in TVC, so I think this would be the third choice for Hasbro to put out if they were to do this animated Ewoks series. So here's a summary of what I came up with if Hasbro were to make a special wave of animated Ewoks figures, and that is Wicket, Logray, and Poplu. Okay, and for the second option I think Hasbro may do for another special wave, and one I'm personally really hoping for, would be a Power of the Force wave. And I'm talking the original Kenner Power of the Force line. And given, again, that it's the anniversary of Return of the Jedi, I think that if Hasbro does do this soon, it would be focused on Return of the Jedi characters or versions of characters that were specific to Return of the Jedi. And I think it could be a wave up to 6 figures, and so I've come up with 6 figures I think Hasbro may consider doing special Power of the Force versions for. So let's take a look at those figures. So before we take a look at my predictions, I first did just want to note that Hasbro has already put out one of these special Power of the Force figures, and that was for the original Vintage Collection HasLab, the Jabba's sail barge. They did this for Yak Face. So they have done it before. Of course, this was not a special wave. This was just a single carded figure that was included in a very expensive HasLab. But I still think they will put out a special wave of these figures. So again, these are my predictions for what Hasbro may do, and not necessarily what I would want to see, because I would want all new figures that we haven't gotten, like last 17 figures, for example. But we know that's not going to happen. On these special waves, they're always repacks or repaints. And so this is what I think most likely Hasbro will do, starting with Luke Skywalker in his Jedi Knight outfit. Of course, a classic character that we know Hasbro likes to reuse as much as possible. And they've got that new version of Luke from The Mandalorian coming, and so it may be an opportunity to actually use that figure and just tweak it a little bit for this special Power of the Force wave. So if they were to do this special Power of the Force wave around the time of the Return of the Jedi anniversary, I think this figure would be a lock. Next up, I have General Lando Calrissian from Return of the Jedi. Interestingly enough, on this original Power of the Force card, it says Lando Calrissian General Pilot, which I always thought was kind of funny. But anyways, I picked this guy because, you know, Hasbro just seems to like to use Lando whenever they possibly can. So, you know, they just can't seem to get enough Landos out there. So that's why I picked Lando Calrissian. Next, I figured they're going to have to throw an Ewok in there if they do this Return of the Jedi special wave for Power of the Force. And if they're going to throw an Ewok in there, it might as well be arguably the most popular one, Wicket. So I could easily see them reusing Wicket once again on a Power of the Force special wave. Next, I picked the Gamorrean Guard, or Gamorrean Guard, as my strange UK friends like to pronounce them every once in a while. And I think this is another good choice because it's a very popular figure. The TVC version of this guy is excellent, so why not reuse him as much as possible? And it's a unique character to the Return of the Jedi, so I could easily see him doing this. Also, not to mention, there was that failed Rancor Black Series HasLab where they were going to make this version of the Gamorrean Guard on a Power of the Force card. Of course, it was Black Series, but anyways, they've gone through the trouble of designing the card back, so I could easily see them reusing it for TVC if they were to do this special wave. Next up, I picked the Biker Scout, or possibly more commonly known as a Scout Trooper these days. And I think this is another lock because we know Hasbro is giving us a new Scout Trooper along with that newly tooled speeder bike, and so they're going to want to reuse that guy as much as possible. So definitely if they do a Return of the Jedi inspired Power of the Force line, they would reuse the Biker Scout. And last but not least, I chose the Emperor. It wasn't too long ago that Hasbro gave us that VC200 Emperor from Return of the Jedi, and they have not reused him since in any way. So I just think it's very likely if they have the opportunity to repack him, then I think they would take that opportunity on this special Return of the Jedi inspired wave if they were to do it. So in summary, here are the figures I'm predicting if Hasbro were to put out a special Return of the Jedi inspired Power of the Force line. And that is Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight, General Lando Calrissian, Wicket A. Warwick, Gamorrean Guard, Biker Scout, and the Emperor. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode. Let me know in the comments what you thought about my predictions for the next special wave of figures for the Vintage Collection, and what special figures would you love to see? Thank you so much to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. Take care, and we'll see you next time.